All right, guys, so our boy Joseph Biden here had a little bit of a cranky grandpa moment. Perhaps he didn't get his oatmeal in the morning, his porridge. Perhaps he wasn't given his Adderall, or perhaps he was crashing from his Adderall. Here's what they say in NBC News. Biden lost temper with Zelensky in June phone call when Ukrainian leader asked for more aid. Biden had barely finished telling Zelensky he just green-lighted another $1 billion in military assistance when the Ukrainian president started listing all of the additional help he needed. All right, so before we continue, I'm just going to tell you guys my bias up front. This is based. This is based. It is kind of obnoxious, right? Like, hey, we're giving you another $1 billion in military assistance. All right, so here's what else I need. Bitch, what? Could you imagine you're helping your friend out, you give your friend $100, and they're like, all right, so I'm going to need like 200 more. Wait, what? Shouldn't you be thanking me for this 100 I'm giving you? And remember, this is at the same time that, how many crises do we have building up in this country? How many crises are there? How many people are uninsured, that they don't have health insurance? How many tens of thousands of people die every year because they don't have basic health care? And this is just, I'm just bringing up one issue. Forget like the Jackson water crisis, right? You have all of Jackson, Mississippi does not have clean water infrastructure. And this guy, here, take $1 billion for a war that you're fighting. Okay, so the priorities here. But it looks like Biden, this is something swirling around in Biden's head to the extent anything is, right? He's like, what the fuck, you ungrateful prick? All right, so they say, it's become routine since Russia invaded Ukraine. President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky speak by phone whenever the U.S. announces a new package of military assistance for Kyiv. By the way, they've had to speak on the phone a zillion times then, huh? What are we on, package number 17? Something like that now? These guys are probably besties at this point. But a phone call between the two leaders in June played out differently from previous ones. According to 4 people familiar with the call, Biden had barely finished telling Zelensky he just greenlit another $1 billion in U.S. military assistance for Ukraine when Zelensky started listing all of the additional help he needed and wasn't getting. Biden lost his temper. The people familiar with the call said the American people were being quite generous, and his administration and the U.S. military were working hard to help Ukraine, he said, raising his voice. And Zelensky could show a little more gratitude. Again, mega-based. Now, why was Zelensky mad? I'll tell you why Zelensky was mad. I don't know how many of you guys remember this, but when the war started, there was a fever pitch and an outcry from every single corner of the establishment, from the Republicans, from a lot of Democrats, from staffers in Biden's ear. They were like, do a no-fly zone. Do a no-fly zone in Ukraine. You have to do a no-fly zone in Ukraine. Biden told everybody to fuck off when they said that. Why? Because if you do a no-fly zone, that's the United States shooting down Russian planes over Ukraine. In other words, that is World War III. So Biden was like, are you guys fucking insane? I'm not doing that. The other thing is, there was a talk for a while about, oh yeah, we got to send fighter jets to Ukraine. We have to send them fighter jets. Well, Biden looked at that and said, hold on now. My goal as the American president, I have to try to help you to defend yourself against an imperialist invasion without doing anything that is escalatory. And so what Biden feared is, if I give these guys fighter jets and they start bombing inside of Russia, then that is an escalation. And the United States, the West, is going to get blamed for that. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give you fighter jets. The other thing is, they want the longest range missiles that the Americans have. Well, Biden looked at that and said, well, you can use that to shoot inside of Russia, and we don't want that. So he said no. So these are things that he rejected because he viewed them as escalatory. Now, remember, you got to look at the context that Biden is sitting in. He is the president of the United States, and everybody in his ear, the entire military-industrial complex, his entire staff, all the Republicans, and most of the Democrats are like, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And he is resisting that pressure. And when you're talking directly to Zelensky, I mean, look, he has every reason in the world to want any and all weapons he can get. Shit, he'd take fucking nukes right now if we give them to him, right? And so Biden is trying to walk that line. Look, we want to help you defend yourself, but we don't want to escalate. And Zelensky's sort of like, hey, fuck that. I'm fighting for my life here. Give me anything and everything you have. And the fact that Biden says no to certain things is going to get under Zelensky's skin. So when he says, hey, I got you $1 billion more of military aid, Zelensky might look at that and say, well, this is only small arms. What the fuck? I want more than that. And so Biden had to put his punk ass in check, right? I mean, I feel bad for Zelensky. I feel horrible for the Ukrainians. They've been illegally invaded by an imperialist power, right? But we can't have this escalate to World War III. We can't have this get out of control. And Biden is trying his best to walk that line. Now, I don't think he's doing it effectively. I think we've already given way too much, and this is just a military-industrial complex slush fund at this point. But he is attempting to walk that line, and he had to put this guy in check. Administration officials said Biden and Zelensky's relationship has only improved since the June phone call, after which Zelensky made a statement praising the U.S. for its generous assistance, but the clash reflects Biden's early awareness that both congressional and public support for sending billions of dollars to Ukraine could begin to fade. Oh, you don't say. That moment has arrived just as the president prepares to ask Congress to greenlight even more money for Ukraine. Yeah, so it's funny because the Democrats, especially the Congressional Progressive Caucus, who released a mild letter saying, let's do diplomacy, and then pulled it back, they seem to think, that like the American people are just itching to send a blank check to Ukraine to fight a war with Russia. I don't know what the fuck you base that on. I have no idea what that's based on. Because again, how many problems do we have here at home that we completely and utterly neglect? And so I think people would prioritize fixing the water in Jackson, Mississippi over sending the 18th military package to Ukraine. So, the conventional wisdom has been, oh, no, yeah, we endless military aid. And it's like, I don't know, why do you think that that's the popular position? You only think it's the popular position because it's the popular position in Washington, D.C. Again, every reasonable person feels for Ukraine and what they're going through and knows that they are the victim on this front. But that doesn't mean we don't have that America doesn't have other national interests that are unique to us and that supersede what's going on in Ukraine. Okay, anyway, let's continue. Biden now faces resistance from some Republicans and Democrats that wasn't present when Congress approved previous Ukraine funds. The White House has discussed asking Congress for billions of dollars during the lame duck legislative session after the midterm elections. The White House hasn't specified an amount publicly. Lawmakers and Ukraine lobbyists hope for $40 billion to $60 billion, and some officials familiar with the discussions expect the number to be roughly $50 billion. All right, so let me pause here. The amount of aid we've already given to Ukraine is between $60 and $80 billion. Bernie Sanders' free college bill was between $60 and $80 billion. So for all the money we sent to Ukraine, with hardly any thought whatsoever, it was very just reflexive. Like, okay, yeah, just do it, right? This is a moral priority. Do it. You could have done free college for that. And everybody would scream, oh, can we afford this? What about the price? I don't know. We need to be fiscally responsible. That's what everybody says when you talk about free college. But for this, it was barely a peep of resistance. A source familiar with the conversation said that Biden was direct with Zelensky about handling the issues in the appropriate military channels, but that the exchange wasn't heated or angry. A spokesperson for the National Security Council declined to comment on the story. A spokesperson for Zelensky didn't respond to a request for comment. Top U.S. officials warn there are no signs the war is ending anytime soon. Well, yeah, when our official position is no negotiation, no diplomacy, when Russia seems uninterested in negotiation and diplomacy, and when Zelensky seems maybe less so, but still not interested in negotiation and diplomacy, yeah, that's the case. The whole point is we should be changing that narrative. We should be taking that position. Now, by the way, what Zelensky did was very, very clever, because as soon as Biden, sort of was fed up with him, he immediately switched course and started praising America and Biden publicly and saying, thank you for all the help. So Zelensky is clever in that respect, because he was like, look, I'll do whatever the fuck you want me to. I'll get on my knees if you want in order for you to help us continue to fund the resistance effectively. Before the June 15th phone call, the president's frustrations with Zelensky had been building for weeks. 3 people familiar with the call said Biden and some of his top aides felt that the administration was doing as much as it could, as quickly as it could, but that Zelensky continued to focus publicly on only what wasn't being done. From Zelensky's perspective, as well as that of some Eastern European governments and U.S. lawmakers from both parties, there has been repeated frustration that the Biden White House moves too slowly on weapons. Oh, please. Initially hesitating to approve certain capabilities Ukraine requested most urgently, only to relent weeks or months later under pressure, according to 2 sources familiar with the Ukraine government's view, congressional aides and 2 European whatever. You guys get it. All right, there you go. So, Grandpa Biden had to snap at Zelensky and let him know who's boss. And I support this. In fact, I support more of this. I'm all in favor of us helping Ukraine to have the ability to defend themselves, but I'm not in favor of escalation. And first and foremost, I want to have negotiation and diplomacy, and that should be the primary concern because the stakes are, nuclear war. And it drives me crazy that more people aren't saying that. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.